want to introduce Kelsey Jordan. As an experienced and award-winning architectural, interior, and graphic designer in St. Louis, Kelsey Jordan's visions for the future of architecture strongly involve embedded ideologies on designing for equity in education and diversity in the built environment. Through research and practice, she has been able to understand how health and wellness can be implemented to affect positive change within communities that face multifaceted issues like obesity, food deserts, poverty, educational attainment, and systematic racism in educational environments. Her pragmatic approach to wellness and education include designing an educational facility in Mississippi, which incorporated agricultural curriculum and a passive and active evidence-based design strategies associated with higher education rates and mentally and physically healthier lifestyles. Kelsey, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me here today. Let me share my screen. Share and put this in presentation mode. Okay, so again, thank you so much. My name is Kelsey Jordan, and when asked to be here today and tell a little bit about myself, I was super excited. But of course, I'm here today to talk to you about promise. And more importantly, I'm here today to talk to you about how you can find your promise and how you can implement it along the way. So for starters, I'm currently in my final stages of becoming a licensed architect. And as an architect, your promise is the health, safety, and welfare of those people who interact with your buildings, meaning that people are going to be safe in the building. But as we know, this last year, health could have been construed a little bit. So that's why I propose a slight modification to wellness. So wellness is a huge part of my promise to the world. When I design, I try my hardest to make sure that people are able to interact with the built environment in such ways that their mental and physical health are positively affected. And that's part of my promise. But again, this doesn't mean much to you when it comes to implementing your promise, especially if you don't know what it is or even how to find it. So one place you can find your promise is to have a deep constructive analysis on your own interests and talents. So I did this unintentionally a few years back and found that a key part of finding your promise is vulnerability with yourself, which is quite funny because I did quite a bit of research on how to be engaging and how to give a good talk and how to speak in front of people. But with that, the word vulnerability kept coming up. So, which again is funny because it ties into my story on finding my promise really well. So here we go. Baby pictures have to be the most vulnerable thing that you can possibly put out there. I mean, this was back when my legs were still the same size and cute. But what you might see is a small child, but I see an additional layer to the images in the form of environmental clues. And there was always something to explore at my level. We were outside a lot. Mom, Dad, and I had a lot of fun until one of the most exciting points in my young life, which was when Tyler came along. So he is now, this is a highly substantial, unconscious, but really influential point in my life. So Tyler's 2.5 years younger than me, and he was born blue. So he was born not breathing. But because he was born so sick, when he finally came home, we as a family learned ways to modify our interior environment so that he was able to breathe and continue to strengthen his breathing to the point where he has no issues now. So I also picked up on very similar exterior environmental clues because my grandmother couldn't breathe for simple outdoor activities like a campfire. So At a young age, I became unconsciously hyper aware on the positive or negative effects that an environment can have on people's immediate health. Unconsciously, the ideology that a building can cause positive change became my promise to the world. But how does that play a part today? So we'll fast forward 20 plus 5 plus maybe 10 years. So I was diagnosed with some health issues of my own, which really led me to question why I was in architecture and not a dietitian or something in the health field that didn't involve needles, because I don't do that. But I knew I was in architecture to make a positive difference by providing a fair, equitable environment, but was there any way that I could incorporate health into architecture without doing healthcare architecture? And was there anywhere in the US that needed it more than anywhere else? So yes, there was. Those deep-seated ideas on how schools were developed with a collaborative educational environment that could combat obesity and food deserts while raising educational attainment was starting to become developed for an educational facility in Mississippi. And the environment had to make health fun because, let's face it, diets suck and slides are fun. Tasting counters are fun. But though a slide stair and a noisy piano hallway did not make it into the project, other active design strategies were implemented along with passive, healthy design strategies. Access to natural light is mentally stimulating. And add that with access to greenery, and you won't believe how happy your mind is. Step it up one more level with more sneaky passive approaches, like placing a stair before an elevator or setting the school into the ground just enough so that a children's eye level is at the same eye level as all the greenery around them. And you become more stimulated with positive effects associated with happiness, educational attainment, and retainment. So I knew no positive lifestyle change would stick with a child unless the whole family is willing to make healthy promises to each other. And this is hugely important, as children with obese parents have a significantly higher chance of becoming obese themselves, which to me seemed like quite the cycle going on. So interestingly, though, through my research, I find that the number one most impactful person on other members in their family in regards to healthy changes is a child. So much like our family, which we were healthy before Tyler came along, but we made additional healthy choices for Tyler once he came along. Now, with that, that's why I chose a school as the best possibility for positive change. That way, these students could use this positive change to be their unconscious promise for their families. So the school had to be safe, versatile community hub. So a full community analysis, as shown in the graphic form on the large sketch to the left, or maybe right on your screen, the large image, took place along with a full analysis on historic educational buildings and styles. Just like all architecture and forms of art, some historic styles and strategies are bad. So, but others have merit, and so the research continued. We conducted a full analysis of each building and how it could be used as a community hub, meaning that each one of these sketches are a different analysis of different types of different movements throughout different points of the day, different, all throughout the main building. And a school should be a safe place that allows children to better themselves, express themselves, and engage in their surroundings. But they're only there for part of the day unless the building is able to expand its activities as a community hub. So it has to be just as versatile as the children themselves. So that's what we did. Now, this is a render of the entrance to the main building of the school. The wood tones are one of many ways that biophilic elements were implemented throughout the school as a form of passive healthy design. Now, I won't get into biophilia because we had a great talk on this last month, but that was a super important aspect of the design. But, school entrances are traditionally used as just that. They're an entrance to a building to the school. But what if it was so much more? What if it was a place that could be used on weekends to host a farmer's market? What if the campus could be used as a community area without even setting foot into a building? Can you imagine all the students wanting to go up there on a Saturday just to see their friends one additional day and to see everything that's going on? And can you imagine all these healthy habits starting to form just for these families? And that's when we took this idea a step further with the integration of agriculture into the classroom. So with a hard analysis of curriculum, overlapping harvest seasons, overlapping student ability, meaning that we did not place the kindergartners with the apple trees. No, they're not tall enough. We predicted that this school has the ability to create enough healthy supplemental food to serve at school and take home to combat living in a food desert and to make healthy choices to combat obesity. So much like the main classrooms, collaborative classrooms are designed into the school with expandable indoor to outdoor space so that students can truly use the whole facility, indoors and out, to expand their education. Now, this is all great, and the knowledge behind it can be implemented throughout other schools and has been in different building typologies. But clearly, again, with this kind of growing season and the snow we have here, this is obviously not in St. Louis. So designing schools, but more importantly to me, places that make a difference in children's lives are my passion. And making a positive difference via wellness design is my promise. So that's where I want to introduce you to Hawthorne. I chair a Women in Architecture committee focused on community outreach here in St. Louis. And I, along with this most amazing group of women, developed and executed a design curriculum for the Hawthorne Leadership School for Girls here in St. Louis. As a middle school and high school, Hawthorne is a St. Louis public all-girls STEM school. Now, how cool is that? So coming in to volunteer teach, we knew that we were to teach them about architecture and design by allowing the girls to design and build their own brand new game. But underlining our main mission, another focus of ours was to teach life skills through equity, inclusion, and empathy. But promises can change, or better yet, they can refine themselves. So these two images just look like games, right? So how in the heck are we going to inspire them with, equity, inclusion, empathy by playing games? So, but remember, images aren't always as they seem. And looking for these environmental clues is key. So my friend here, who did not miss one session, has on noise canceling headphones, and she's playing the game of Guess Who. So, this is a game, for those of you who've maybe not played it, where you're given one of those cards and you're trying to guess your opponent's card based off of facial identifying features, like hair color, hairstyle, eye color. And it is super hard, if not impossible, to play with noise canceling headphones on. So these girls were learning firsthand what it's like to play a game as a hearing impaired person so that they were able to emphasize and therefore design a game that included the ability for everyone to play. Jenga's the same story. This is an oven mitt. I'm not sure about you, but I'm a little bit of a cheater when I play Jenga, and I like to kind of poke at the Jenga tiles to see which one is the most loose. And this is impossible to do with an oven mitt on giant Jenga, yet alone real size Jenga. So we, with this, these girls learned how scale works, but sometimes it's necessary to make, and that it's sometimes necessary to make adaptations to normal games so that more people are able to play. So the girls then got to sketching, and this is by far my most favorite slide in any of this presentation, because look at how talented they are and how much brainstorming and how many ideas that they have, and just how well they could think through a problem, and they committed themselves to creating a game that anyone could play. And our promise to them to teach them equity, inclusion, and empathy quickly changed our promise to them to be a soundboard for their ideas, because as you can tell, there were so many great ideas. And we promised to listen, and we did. And we promised that we would be there for them whenever they had a down day, and we had down day breakthroughs. And we promised that we would have fun, and we did. Even though I was asked if the Charleston was in my day and age, and the Charleston is not in my day and age. No. We promised that we would do whatever it took within reason, and very much so, trust me on that, to make their ideas come to life. And so we started the building process with the girls, and they were absolutely amazing. And they picked up power tools so quickly, and they did such a great job and creating these great games. And when the project was started, I was asked what games we would make with the girls, and I said, I don't know. And then I was asked what we were going to teach them, and I said, architecture and design. And I've never been more wrong. We taught them the importance of a promise. And to cause positive collaborative change is to strengthen a community by empowering generations. And we believe in Hawthorne and their ability to make a difference in young women's lives. And that's why we collaborate with them, to give them an outlet to harness their creative abilities and find their promise for themselves and others. The important thing, though, for you is to recognize your promise. Become vulnerable. Understand your passion and implement it, and accept that sometimes promises change. They refine. And sometimes they're hard to recognize. And that's when we need to look long and hard at context clues. Honest context clues. But once you recognize your promises, you're able to implement them. And so I leave you with this. What is your promise? Are there clues from your experiences that help to define it? And what positive change will you inspire from it? So again, my name is Kelsey Jordan, and my promise is to promote wellness and positive change through architecture and design. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Kelsey. I absolutely love that project with the young girls. So great. I can't only imagine like how that room felt when they were thinking through these ideas and understanding what challenges were for people. So awesome.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun. There's a lot of laughter. We also did blindfolded bags or cornhole, which they thought was really fun too. So.
Well, I want to open it up to the audience to ask Kelsey any questions. And if you have a question, please type it in the chat, and then we'll ask you to unmute. And I'll start with my first question. So you definitely described, how you found your promise kind of at an early age with complications with your brother and even your own health. But did you know right away, or did you kind of have to go on a journey to find it? Because sometimes, life kind of takes you in a circle, you kind of loop back around to something that's meaningful to you.
I had no idea. I had no idea and wasn't able to put it all together until years and years later, like after I had developed the project, and then started to see essentially an underlying theme throughout how I was designing and how I was sketching and how I was thinking through any type of creative problem. And they always had wellness in them, and they always had children doing something fun. And so, yeah, it was very much so unconscious in the fact on a lot of it. And I had to have a hard look at, well, why am I thinking about wellness? Why do I care?
Yeah, that's great. I feel like that's pretty typical with a lot of people finding their true passions and journeys. Let's see, David Charles says, bravo, Kelsey. You are so right. Vulnerability is essential to getting the core of your essence. Wonderful job. Yes, I love that whole, I think I wrote that down too, finding your promise, vulnerability. That's a great point. As we're waiting for other questions, oh, here we go. I'm sorry, I don't know your first name. So Kirchhoff, do you want to unmute and ask your question?
Yeah, sure. Hi, my name's Daniel. I was wondering if you've been able to incorporate more of your food production, food education into more projects beyond just the first one down in Mississippi. Thank you.
We have not had that opportunity because of different growing seasons up here. It makes it a little bit more difficult, but if you want to see a really cool place that incorporates it here in downtown, you need to check out the Urban Food Roof because it's really, really cool. And they do a lot with children and a lot with just general groups here in town. And when they open back up, it's just honestly a really, really cool place to go.
Okay, thank you. Where is that at downtown? You know the address off the
Address, I do not. It's by Wave Taco, which is kind of by City Museum.
Yeah, that's close enough. I can find that. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's on Convention Plaza. They just put a beautiful new mural on the building too. Mm-hmm. Looks like we have a question from Jenna. Jenna, do you want to unmute? Oh, we're having trouble hearing you.
Huh?
Oh, I can hear you now.
It must have been a delayed unmute. I just wanted to get your take on how you think architecture can help the city of St. Louis become safer, more equitable throughout the city, not just in the pockets that we have now. I would love to see a redeveloped St. Louis, and how you think architecture can play into that.
I would too, and that's why we live downtown, because we really believe strongly in St. Louis. And then we also, as in my husband and I, bought a property and flipped it, complete gut rehabbed it, because we believe in St. Louis so strongly. And the thing that I see St. Louis and architecture playing a part of that is architecture gives people a sense of place and a sense of pride. And if you really think about the built world, people are indoors 90% of their time. So they're in a building. But also with that, when people are given a place that they can take pride in, then they're able to elevate that one step further and elevate their community. And I think that if we create these places in St. Louis that really provide this sense of place, and with sense of place, that safety, those Maslow's hierarchy of needs, then we're going to be able to get that more equitable place, that safer place, that, you know, a place where architecture can really help to refine that. And that safer place is going to happen when more people are able to take that pride in a place and walk around and do everything. Hopefully that answered it.
Yeah, thank you.
I love that explanation too, because I think it shows, as your talk showed, how interconnected everything is, and literally everything is designed, whether that is, you know, designing a structure or designing for inclusion. And I think it's becoming very clear more and more that these things are so interconnected, and we can get ahead of it to make some real impact.
Oh, big time.
Anyone else from the audience have any questions? I did think of another one. Where do you find inspiration, and are there any projects that really inspired you as you were kind of working on the school, or any other projects that made an impact?
On the school? So there's a firm out of Denmark that I really like, but because of their sketching style, CRBT, CEBRA, I believe is it. I have them bookmarked, but I just really enjoy their sketching style, and I really liked how they're just so playful and everything. When looking at specific school ideologies, we explored everything. We dove really deep into outdoor classrooms and Montessori schools and different eras. So essentially in Europe for a while, it seemed like every 10 years a new school typology was developed. Some were classrooms were all offset, so more people had more courtyard type space, and then no, everybody had to be in one building and all the way up straight. So we looked into so much that one specific school is not coming to mind.
Yeah, that's interesting. I feel like some of our systems have kind of been in the same place for a while. So looking at new ideas is definitely interesting. I loved how this school was very multi-purpose, because buildings have lives too. And usually they transform at least at one point in their life. So you kind of you built that into the program.
Yeah, and that's what's fun too. And if you think about a school, your traditional school, so kids and teachers are there anywhere between, 7 a.m. and we'll say 5 p.m., depending on what time the school lets out, or after school activities and stuff like that. And then that might be expanded to maybe like 8 o'clock with sports or something. And then maybe on weekends we'll have sports or practice or something like that. However, a lot of times it's very centric on sports, but there are some people who aren't very good at sports. So it's really nice to have this facility, though, that when you find a community that's in need in some way, and that need for community changes on the community and what they really, really need. And so if you can utilize a space that's not being used necessarily to its full potential, then you now have this empty building that you can make that positive change for the community in it due to multi-use space.
Looks like we have another question from Daniel. Daniel, do you want to unmute?
Hey, me again. I was wondering if you have any thoughts about designing schools with Montessori concepts in mind? Thanks.
I like Montessori schools. If you want to see one that really, really pushes the boundary, I can't remember where it's at, but they essentially have no classrooms in it, which is very interesting and I feel like would be very, very noisy. But I guess more specifically, what are you thinking when it comes to Montessori schools versus a different school, like a traditional school?
Yeah, I just know the general concepts of, it's kind of a self-led learning, and they can explore, and it's set up in such a way that they're learning as they're exploring. It doesn't feel like, all right, you sit in this chair for 8 hours and listen to somebody talk up by the chalkboard. Just the more free flowing. I'm just curious about your thoughts on that.
So so I work at a firm in town that does nothing but schools, and I can't name projects, but I will say that more schools than the traditional sense are coming up with spaces that are collaborative spaces, so that students are able to get up and interact with one another. This has also been huge during COVID because it allows students to spread out. But after COVID, when they're able to come back together, they're able to use this space to explore and use this as that extension of a classroom, which is really kind of cool because, I mean, some students learn by doing, some students learn by visual, some learn by, kinesthetic, auditorial, all these different types of learning styles. So to expand on that, or to have multiple learning styles on top of one another, especially a space that allows that to happen, is huge. So I really think that more schools are going to try and incorporate different collaborative type spaces like that. If you take a cafeteria, for instance, students are there between, give or take, 10 and 2 about. But what's happening to that space before and after that? So that's a huge open space that you can then use as a collaborative space of some kind, for a very easy example. Otherwise, building in like nooks, safe nooks, are huge.
Thank you.
Mhm.
That leads me to another question. What changes, since the pandemic, have you seen in educational design, and how are you kind of planning for the future?
So some larger changes I see are definitely more technology integrated into the classroom. And some schools were more prepared for this than other schools. So that was a huge aspect, but also giving teachers a space where they feel safe, because a lot is focused on students. And I very much so agree with that too. But you mean that the teachers are there too. This is their job. So providing that space for the teachers to feel safe as well. The integration of, or the awareness of health has become more, which for me is really exciting, obviously. But I wish it would have come about in a different way. But any specific examples, it really depends on a school to school basis. Some schools have incorporated the idea of having hand washing stations right before when students come in from recess and stuff, but we've also been doing that on schools for years. So it really depends on the school and their district. So sorry, nothing specific.
Yeah, no, I could totally see the education aspect, though. I, am adjunct at Maryville, and so we've totally done this hybrid style classroom for a while now, and it's been interesting. And so trying to figure out what platforms to use technology wise and how that integrates with the built environment and keeping everyone safe has been on everyone's minds for sure. Do you mostly work with just K through 12, or do you also work on higher education projects?
I personally have worked on all of them. I think the scales are slightly tipped in K through 12, but have worked on all of them. They're all fun in their own ways. I like little kids more to play, like to do stuff for them, because a lot of times it can be like really fun and playful. However, using that same mindset with older kids, because they just don't want to be, they just want to be cool. But they like the fun areas just as much as the little kids. They just won't admit it, but you can see it, they do.
Yeah. You have to incorporate play anywhere.
Yes. Yes.
Looks like Daniel has a question. Are you seeing more outdoor classrooms in K through 12?
Some, yes. I think some schools are also, at least from what I'm hearing, some schools are also, I think, holding out and thinking that maybe COVID will go. But from what I've been hearing from a couple different schools, yes, but some no. Again, it's a district-wide thing or a school choice. And then otherwise, I can think of a school back at home that they already had an outdoor space. So just more of a utilization of it.
I don't think we have any more questions coming in, so I'll end on this question. If you are already in your career and maybe struggling to find your promise, do you have any tips or, concepts to help someone sort of align themselves with what they want to contribute?
So I was told from a mentor to essentially look at what your passions are and what you spend most of your time on. So inherently, you the phrase that I don't have time to do anything is not accurate at times, like at times, because you will always make time for what's important to you. And that's just how people work. And that most important thing to you is going to be your passion. So if that is what you find yourself spending most of your time on, then I bet you that has to do with your promise and what you are most excited about and passionate about. So I would look towards that and then kind of think about maybe, what means a lot to you, and kind of thinking about that underlying ideology in your life. That's what I would say.
Great answer. Looks like we're seeing some love in the chat. Thank you guys so much for joining us for our first Creative Mornings Talk of the Year. This year is going to be awesome. We have a lot of great speakers coming up, so make sure you stay tuned. Follow Kelsey on social media. Follow us on social media. We'll be posting all of our future events on Facebook, Instagram, our website, all of the socials. You know where to find us. So thank you again, Kelsey, so much for joining us. Amazing talk. We learned so much today. And we look forward to seeing everyone in February.